Welcome to Mom Talk Radio, the show that tackles topics important to you and your family. Finances, food, education, technology, and everything in between. We've got it covered on Mom Talk.
I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy, and you know traveling is one of my favorite things to do, but my traveling style has changed a little bit since having a 22-month-old, and I have to say that trips where you could just hop in the car and go are a lot more desirable. As much as I love getting on the plane, the road trips are the way to go because the kids can fall asleep in the car. You can bring lots of snacks and they're kind of contained. You don't have to worry about them running around the airport, running around on the plane. So with me today, I have Peter Greenburg. He is an Emmy-winning investigative reporter, and he's going to talk to us about the great American road trip. Hi, Peter. Thanks for joining me.
Happy to be with you. And, I totally agree with you on that. I grew up on doing road trips with my parents. And in those days, we didn't have all the electronic accessories. It was, you basically looked out the window and counted the other 57 Chevys.
Right.
A different experience altogether. But what was great about that, which can be great about it today, is the environment that you were in, the trip that you took, the distance that you drove, allowed for great conversation and storytelling. And that's really what we're coming back to today.
And that is so nice to hear, because I do feel like you look around, and especially on an airplane, and parents, I understand it now. It's like you're doing everything you can to just keep your kid quiet and occupied. And so they are on their electronic devices or eating a snack or whatever. And there is no talking.
Yeah, nobody talks to anybody. I mean, we've lost the art of the conversation. The good thing about the road trip that I'm going to talk about, and they're very specifically designed to allow people to learn without it being hit over the head with it, to discover, to take a left turn when you wanted to take a right turn and still be okay about it, and then have that conversation, learn from something. So, I call them one-tank trips. And what a one-tank trip is simply this. Where can you go from wherever you live and then come back on less than one tank of gas and actually have a great time? So we're talking about trips of about 400 miles. Because with fuel efficiency being what it is, new cars coming out with all sorts of great accessories that make that happen, these are all manageable trips. And you don't have to do them like I did in college. I don't know what your experience was, but when I was in college, a road trip was you got in the VW, the four-cylinder car with the manual transmission that went from 0 to 60 in 2 hours. It was a struggle. You were wedged in there with all your friends with no comfort whatsoever, and you sort of like drove as far as you could before you fell asleep. That's not what we're talking about today. What we're talking about today, first of all, they don't even make the VW anymore. This is the last year they're making the Beetle. What's replaced it has really been another classic car that I also grew up with, but has really evolved, and that's the Toyota Corolla. That's the car these days that's got great gas mileage, but unlike the little small car I was in, it's a 5-passenger car, and it's got 18 cubic feet of storage space because, as a mom, you're going to be schlepping stuff.
Exactly.
You the stuff that you got to bring with you. Now, here's the key. Not just the car itself, although this is a great car, but it's where you're going to go and how you're going to get there, meaning stay off the interstate. The interstate is going to be just one truck stop and rest stop after another. You learn nothing. You experience nothing. Take a map from wherever you happen to live and figure out what's 200 miles away from you, and then plan accordingly using 2-lane county roads, state highways, and that's where you discover the real America. That's where you get a chance to truly experience what this country is all about. And if you take a look at this particular car I talked about, the Toyota Corolla, it's got a 13-gallon gas tank, which gives it, based on its average mileage of about 36 combined highway and city, a 468-mile range. So that gives you 200 miles to spare each way and still have a great time. And it's affordable.
Right. And that is incredible gas mileage. So would you say it's spacious enough to fit 1 or 2 car seats in there as well?
Oh, yeah. It's a 5-passenger car. So mom and dad in the front, 2 car seats in the back, you're good to go. What's also good about it, yes, it's a 4-cylinder car, and it's a manual transmission, which I love, by the way, because you're actually driving the car.
Right.
But it's a 168-horsepower engine that actually has some power. And where I'm going to suggest that you go on some of these trips might require a little bit of that. Well, one of them is an easy one. I mean, I went to school in Madison, Wisconsin, so one of my great trips is going from Chicago to Madison because it's doable. It's under 350 miles in total, and you use Madison as your hub to discover the rest of the state of Wisconsin, which, by the way, Madison has the best farmers market in America.
Oh, yeah?
Oh, yeah. And what makes it really cool is that you can't exhibit there unless you're the actual person who grew the vegetables or, grew the cow. And so when you talk to somebody there, you're actually talking to the person who did it.
Oh, that's neat.
Love that trip. And then, of course, going from Madison, you've got all the county roads that are going to take you to all the great farms and antiques and garage sales that you won't find anywhere else. Another one that I love, and there's a theme here which I'll share with you in a second, is San Antonio to Padre Island, a national seashore that's 172 miles each way, and it's taking you right to the water. Here's another one, Detroit to Toronto. Nobody thinks about that trip, but it's great. You're in Canada, and once again, you're on the water. Are you getting the theme here?
Right.
San Francisco to Lake Tahoe. Now, this is where you really get to drive the car because you're going up mountains, you're doing winding roads, and at the end, you get to America's deepest and clearest lake. It's just amazing. That's a 400-mile trip. But remember, we're not doing an endurance run here. We're taking our time. It's 2 to 3 days, and you don't have to fill the tank.
Right, which is amazing. And that's the thing, too. I think families are very cost conscious nowadays. We have a lot of expenses, especially now with things that are going on with the government and TSA shutdown and all that stuff. People don't want to deal with the airports, but they need to get away. And I think this is incredible. Now, what are some tips that you would recommend, just things that you should do to check out your car before you get on the road?
Well, first of all, people don't ever look at their tires. You take them for granted. And you got to measure the tire tread, and you got to measure the inflation, and that's easy to do these days. Most cars these days, are so electronic, including the Toyota, by the way, that it's very easy for the mechanic to check it in 10 seconds and let you know if you got a problem. I mean, I grew up where I could actually change a spark plug. I can't do that anymore. But for the car itself, the systems are so good because they've taken the new electronic stuff, which have been placed in the high-end cars, and they've now put them back in cars like the Toyota Corolla, which you need. These are safety things that every family needs. For example, the blind spot indicators on the mirrors, so that before you ever change lanes whether or not you should. Even if you can't see the car, it knows one's coming. The other one that really helps me a lot is the lane change vibrator, meaning if you start moving over the lane, the yellow line, and you're not supposed to, it inherently knows this and alerts you in time for you to make corrective action. This is all good stuff you need to know.
And I think these are great features. And I think it's incredible that they are offered in a car like the Toyota Corolla, because I think a lot of parents think, they'll only be offered in the high-level trim options on maybe an SUV or a minivan. But knowing that they are on such a fuel-efficient car, which you can use for road trips, which you can use as your first or second car in the household to get around, I think makes it a great option.
Exactly. So now you asked about other plans for the car. How about plans for the kids? Here's what I would suggest. We live in a culture where everybody thinks the answer is a selfie. And, a great photo does not have to include you in it. What you should do is to incentivize your kids, if they're old enough, to use their phones as storytelling machines so that they can, when you get off these county roads, they can go to the video component of these phones and interview the people that they meet, have conversations. We've lost the art of the conversation. And then pick activities that they can do that are interactive and participatory. So it's not just about stopping at the roadside fruit stand to buy some watermelon. It's about finding the places along these one-tank trips where you can go into the orchards and pick your own apples. And go to museums that are truly interactive. When I was growing up, there was no such thing as an interactive museum. You weren't allowed to talk. You weren't allowed to look. You weren't allowed to touch. You just had to stand there. Now, I can't find a museum that doesn't have a great interactive component, and that is a huge difference on a road trip.
Right. Exactly. You're absolutely right. So tell me, where can people go for more information on you, on road trips, on Toyota? Just some more tips, because you offer so much great advice.
Well, the bottom line here is I have a website which is not transactional in any way. We're not selling anything. It's free. Anybody can sign up for it. We update it all the time because travel is, as you know, front page news. It's got the most imaginative name, petergreenburg.com. and just sign up for it, and you'll have all that information in there. But keep in mind, the information gets updated because things change, and you need to know exactly what's going on, not just in terms of destination, but in terms of the process, in terms of how you get there.
Right. Absolutely. And I'm sure, you are a household name. Many people know who you are. But in case there's somebody listening who doesn't, you are basically the most recognized, honored, and respected frontline travel news journalist. You're known in the travel industry as the travel detective. You've been the travel editor for CBS News, appearing on CBS This Morning. And you've had quite a career in journalism from the West Coast to the East Coast. So I'm so glad that you joined us today and talked about the road trip, because I think we all need to hear it and we all need a reminder, especially as the spring and the summertime starting to approach.
You got it. Listen, there's nothing more American than it, and it's something that we need to embrace, and it brings back your childhood while you're at it.
Yep, absolutely. Peter Greenburg, thank you so much for joining me today. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. And if you're looking for destination ideas, if you're trying to figure out where you want to go on your next trip, you can obviously go to Peter's website. You can go to my website, Passport Mommy. Lots of great destinations around the country. So you could figure out, okay, where do I live and where can I get to on one tank of gas? Because how cool is that? Especially people don't want to take long vacation trips anymore. Maybe you can't get time away from work. Take a long weekend. You only have to take a day or two off from work. It really is a wonderful thing and very educational for the kids. I'm Michelle Jerson. More coming up next.
Mom Talk Radio, a busy mom's best friend.
I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy, and we talk so much about pregnancy and postnatal. Well, today I have with me Dr. Scott Adzik. He is a surgeon-in-chief at Children's Hospital of Philadelphia. He's the director of the Hospital Center for Fetal Diagnosis and Treatment, the largest and most comprehensive fetal program in the world, having welcomed expectant mothers from all 50 states and more than 60 countries. And Dr. Adzik, thank you so much for joining me today. I want to talk to you about such an interesting topic. When I heard what you're doing over there at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, when it comes to children who may be born with birth defects, it's so interesting that you can now do surgery while the child is still in the womb.
Well, that's what we do, Michelle, and we like it. Michelle, this is Birth Defects Awareness Month. And so to give you a perspective about how common birth defects are, it's about 1 in every 33 babies is born with a birth defect, which is amazing. So common. Birth defects are costly. Literally, billions of dollars are required for medical treatment. Birth defects are merciless. No parent is immune. They're mysterious. Unfortunately, most causes of birth defects are unknown. In my view, Michelle, they're overlooked. Research is underfunded, and birth defects are deadly, the leading cause of infant mortality. So in the U.S., each year, nearly 150,000 babies are born with birth defects, many with conditions so rare most parents and even some clinicians have never heard of them. So I'm glad to be on your show to maybe educate some families.
Yeah, because I know obviously when we're pregnant, we go for our ultrasounds. At what point would a mother know that she has a child who may have a birth defect?
Well, so it's important to think maybe in terms of two categories, anatomic birth defects, structural ones, and genetic birth defects. So for anatomic birth defects, most pregnant mothers in the U.S. at least have an ultrasound done at 18 to 20 weeks gestation, and most anatomic birth defects should be detectable at that time, and then there can be referral to a center like ours, or more sophisticated radiologic testing can be done, for instance, with fetal MRI. It's true you can do an MRI on the fetus to give more information, and that's a technique that we invented here at the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia about 20 years ago. As far as genetic birth defects go, the standard way in the past for those who say we're at higher risk would be to do an amniocentesis or a chorionic villus sampling. But now there's a new test that requires only a maternal blood sample. It's called non-invasive prenatal testing, or NIPT for short. So the way this works is that from the maternal blood, there's a leakage of fetal DNA and fetal cells from the fetus across the placenta into the maternal bloodstream, and we have techniques now to find the needle in the haystack, the fetal cells, to retrieve them and do genetic testing with only a maternal blood sample.
And that's amazing. And I've had that done. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. Does that test for 3 major birth defects, correct? Or does it test a wide array of them?
3 major genetic abnormalities, the trisomies, but
Right.
things are getting sophisticated to do other genetic analysis, and I think with time this may largely replace amniocentesis.
That would be amazing, because I know I had an amnio done and it was such a debate. It was such a debate within my mind whether or not to do it, because they do warn you that it could lead to a miscarriage.
Yeah, 1 in 200,
Right.
Yep.
So, that would be absolutely amazing to have that, which could test the whole array of defects. So, okay, so parents who know that they have a child who is going to be born with a birth defect, what are some things that they can do prior to the baby being born?
Well, I think they need to meet with a team like ours to make sure the appropriate testing has been done and to get information. And really, so we've had 23,000 referrals to our center since 1995. This year we'll evaluate about 2,000 women carrying babies with birth defects, most of which are quite serious. Only 10% of those women require any sort of fetal therapy, and you only do fetal therapy if there's progressive damage by the birth defect to organs before birth, such that when the baby is born, you're too late. So it's rare, but we of course, have done more fetal surgery operations than any center in the world for things like twin-twin transfusion syndrome, spina bifida, lung tumors, things of that sort.
Incredible. And what is the expected long-term outcome for babies who do undergo this fetal surgery?
Well, let's take one example. So twin-twin transfusion syndrome is where there are identical twins in the same uterus, of course, separate amniotic sacs, but as opposed to 2 placental discs, 2 placentas, into which the umbilical cord inserts, there's only one, so they have to share it. And for some reason, in some of these instances, there's unpaired abnormal blood vessels that go from one side of the placenta to the other, such that one of the twins gets too much blood, it goes into heart failure and develops excess amniotic fluid, and the other twin doesn't get enough blood and goes into kidney failure, does not produce fetal urine, which is what most of amniotic fluid is, and becomes shrink-wrapped in the membranes, and both twins will go on to die. At a certain stage, they're doomed. But with fetoscopic laser therapy, putting a fetoscope into the uterus, visualizing the placenta and the abnormal blood vessels, and then using a laser fiber to photocoagulate the culprit unpaired blood vessels, you can reverse this process with a 90% plus survival rate for both twins.
Absolutely incredible. So tell me, I would love to hear and learn more, and especially for any mom and family that could use you and the Children's Hospital of Philadelphia, where can they go to find more information?
Well, the website's pretty good. There's a lot of information there, and that site is fetalsurgery, one word, .chop, CHOP.edu. So fetalsurgery.chop.edu.
Great. Dr. Scott Atzig, thank you so much for joining me today. I wish we had more time. I know there's so much more we can talk about, but it really is amazing to know that there is a place where moms and families can go if their child is one of the many that is going to be born with a birth defect. You're listening to Passport Mommy. I'm Michelle Jerson. More coming up in a few.
Mom Talk Radio, a busy mom's best friend.
I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. And for all of those women who are pregnant or who just had a baby, you're going to want to listen to this segment, because you know I'm very much into health and wellness and taking care of our bodies. And as a woman who is pregnant, you know that so much can happen. Your pelvis moves, things stretch, aches, pains everywhere. And you want to prepare for the best birth that you can have. So with me, I have Leah Stewart. She has been teaching Pilates and movement for 14 years. In that time, she has taught Pilates all over the world, presenting at conferences and training Pilates teachers. And in addition to teaching teachers, she is the owner of Live Life Pilates, where she specializes in women's health topics, ranging from pelvic floor health to prenatal education to inspiration and motivation for mamas to live a dynamic life through movement. Leah, thank you so much for joining me today.
Oh, thank you, Michelle. I'm so honored and happy to be here as well.
Thank you. So tell me a little bit about practicing Pilates during pregnancy and why women should incorporate that into their workout routine.
Yeah, so practicing Pilates is such a wonderful gift. And I think the best thing about Pilates, besides just the benefits of the movement itself, is that the Pilates practice, the Pilates exercises, kind of based off of the original exercises of Joseph Pilates, they are so versatile. We're able to modify them and change them and just grow from them to really accommodate anybody at any phase of their life. So when we talk about pregnancy, that's one of the biggest advantages, is that we can take the original repertoire that Joseph Pilates created and we can focus on the benefits of it, and we can focus on the purpose of it and what we're trying to achieve by doing those exercises. And then we can shift it, we can change them slightly so that they are doable by pregnant women, they are safe for pregnant women, and then most importantly that they're really effective for pregnant women to kind of help them feel the best that they can, to help them, mitigate back pain, to help them feel stable and strong, to help maintain their posture during pregnancy, and then of course to help prepare them for the big act of having a baby and labor and birth, and then of course that parlays into postpartum recovery and healing as well.
Right, absolutely. And I know for myself, I have not done as much Pilates as I would like to do during my pregnancy because I was afraid. I was like, well, I'm told not to do this move and not to do that move. So can you give us an example of just maybe 2 moves that are safe and how we can modify?
Yeah, well, I guess it really depends on what you're trying to focus on. So I would say there's a couple areas that come to light where we kind of get very fearful, not only in my profession as a Pilates teacher and a movement teacher, but also women as well. Because again, like you said, we kind of hear all these like, you can't do this, you can't do this, you can't do this. So there's this fear wrapped around movement when it comes to pregnancy, and that's natural because we want to make sure that we're doing the best that we can to protect the little life that's growing inside of us. So when we talk about, I think the biggest one is going to be abdominals, right? Because the abdominals shift and they grow and they stretch, and the conjunctive tissue in between the right and left sides of the abdominals, that kind of shifts and grows as well, or lengthens as well. And so I think we get a little bit fearful about what abdominal work can I do because I don't want to create any problems. The biggest problem that women are aware of is called diastasis recti, which is basically just a overexpansion of that connective tissue in between the right and left sides of the body. And so when we talk about abdominal work, we really need to work the abdominals, not work them per se, but we need to maintain their supportive mechanisms during pregnancy. So we want to do exercises that emphasize that beautiful engagement of the abdominal wall to help support that growing belly, to help support the lower back, to help in conjunction with the pelvic floor. So an example of safe exercises for the abdominals would be, what we call like pelvic rolls or pelvic tilts, pelvic curls. So a best example, saying it verbally without being able to show you, would be, sitting on your bottom with your legs crossed, with your hands on your knees, and then kind of using your pelvis and curling your pelvis underneath you, so to create a little bit of a curve in your lower back. And that really safely engages the abdominals in a way that's not going to add any excessive pressure onto the already stretched out abdominal muscles in the abdominal wall. So that is a really basic exercise, and then we kind of just go from that, and we can create all these beautiful variations off of that. Another great way to work the abdominals during pregnancy is kind of doing side work, so what we call lateral flexion, where basically you bend from side to side, kind of pulling like your rib cage down towards your pelvis, and that is a great way to work the obliques, work some of the back muscles as well, but then it's also a safe way to make sure that we're supporting the belly with the abdominal wall as well. So that would be probably my 2 most basic examples of how we can modify the work, because again, the work can be completely modified to meet all the needs of a pregnant woman, especially it's going to change every week that she is pregnant because her belly is growing and growing and growing. So I hope that helps a little bit.
Yeah, that helps a lot. Now, I know some women, including myself, get like this lower back, I'd say like sacrum pain into the glute when they're pregnant, or maybe even it's combined with having to pick up an infant or a toddler if this is their second pregnancy. Is there anything that women can do to strengthen that area or to alleviate the pain a little bit?
Absolutely. So We often think that kind of, some people are aware of that hormone relaxant. So the hormone relaxant surges through a pregnant woman's body, and essentially it's getting the joints ready for labor, particularly the pelvis, because the pelvis the bones are going to shift and move as the baby descends through the birth canal. And so when we're dealing with the mobility that we're establishing because of the hormonal changes, the postural shifts that are happening because our belly is growing, and as our belly grows, our pelvis tilts forward, which is natural. We want to allow that to happen in a natural way. Just sometimes we get excessive with it when we don't have the abdominal support. And what that does is it pushes a lot of strain on our lower back because our back muscles are kind of like, hold on, let me support you as much as I can. And so the muscles are designed to work synergistically. So you have the abdominal supporting the lower back, and then you also have to keep in mind of that pelvic floor kind of connection as well. So there's a lot going on there. So the best thing that I think we can do as pregnant women, we can do as Pilates professionals and movement professionals to help pregnant women, is to teach them kind of where their posture is naturally and where it should be as their pregnancy progresses. We know that we have this kind of this ideal postural alignment when we are walking around, but that is going to shift and change during pregnancy. So I think posture becomes really important, and kind of where is that alignment of the lower spine, where is the alignment of the pelvis, and where is the alignment of the upper body. So that in and of itself, Michelle, will completely mitigate and take away so many potential problems in the lower back and the sciatica and things like that. The other one is making sure that we're working in a well-balanced way when we do our exercises, and then that translates into how we are functioning in everyday life as well. So being aware of, when we're doing, exercise choices, whether it's from Pilates to yoga to weight training as you continue to weight train as you're pregnant, or something as simple as taking walks, we need to make sure that we are working the body in a balanced way and that we are utilizing different movement techniques in our life that are going to promote that. Because when we don't, we establish, just these off patterns and these muscular imbalances, and then that opens the door to a lot of this pain that we're talking about, lower back pain and hip pain. So that's kind of a preventative measure. If it's happening, if we're having lower back pain, if we're having hip pain, one of the best things that we can do is we can, again, focus on mobilizing that lower back. So just kind of rolling that pelvis underneath us, lengthening out those lower back muscles, helping to engage the pelvic floor and the abdominals. And that's going to help create that balance. And the other one is a lot of women experience sciatica as well. And again, once we create that balance in kind of lengthening out that spine and mobilizing that spine and safely engaging the abdominals, we can do things where we gently stretch the hips, the outer hip, where we gently stretch the inner thighs, we gently stretch the front of the hips, the hip flexors as well. And that will kind of help to keep those muscles around the hip supple and lengthened and open. And then when we go to do things like leg strengthening exercises or anything that requires stabilization of our torso, to things like walking, or walking uphill or things like that, we're going to be able to now work with a little bit more balance in our structure as well.
Right,
so
exactly.
It's really about when a woman is early in her pregnancy, preventative is going to be so helpful. So go ahead. I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, that's okay. That's all really helpful advice. And I think this is why Pilates and just basic moves like you're talking about are so helpful. So in addition to Pilates, tell me why pelvis and pelvic floor work, which is part of Pilates, is so important for women.
It's so important. This is one of my biggest passions is pelvic floor work and pelvic floor health. It's because, the pelvic floor is a part of our core structure. And, our basic core structure is the pelvic floor underneath, the abdominals in the front, the spinal muscles in the back, and the diaphragm up on top. And it makes this beautiful capsule. The pelvic floor is such an intricate design of muscles. There are 2 layers of these muscles, and they're designed to provide this beautiful support of our organs that rest on top of it. As we move, it's designed to allow things to come out and to allow things to come in. And it's just a really adaptable set of muscles it's so beautiful the way that they're designed. And they're designed as this kind of like a hammock or like a hull of a boat. And so when we get out of balance in our pelvic floor. When we, a lot of times we associate pelvic floor problems with women having weak pelvic floors in the sense that maybe they're over lengthened, the muscles are, stretched out because of childbirth or something like that. Well, that may be the case for some women, but actually what's happening most of the time is that women have over tight pelvic floor muscles and maybe overly tight, overly tonic in a certain element of their pelvis or a certain area of their pelvis. And tight muscles are really weak muscles as well. So when there's kind of that imbalance that's happening within the pelvic floor structure, it can create havoc because the pelvic floor muscles are, of course, they're attached to the pelvis, the pelvic bones, and then you have the spinal muscles that attach to the back of the pelvis. So everything is interconnected. So when we have those imbalances, it creates these little tiny shifts within the pelvis. It creates these little tiny shifts within the skeletal structure, and that affects our movement. And then when it affects our movement, daily life or in exercise, and sometimes we make exercise choices or everyday life choices that exacerbate those issues. And so what happens is that pain starts to come in. And then the muscles can't function as well as they can, and their supportive mechanisms are compromised. So that's where we start to get things like leakage. It usually starts with what we call stress incontinence, which is from sneezing or laughing or, jumping or running or something like that. And then it kind of grows from there if the issue isn't fixed. So pelvic floor health, pelvic floor muscles need to be supple yet supportive and strong. They need to be able to stretch and move, but they need to be able to support as well. They have to have that really nice balance. And when we establish that, we're really able to, just step into all of the movements that we want to step into with confidence from, daily life, picking up our kids, to going for a jog, to joining our kids on the trampoline in the backyard, also to things like our sexual intimacy interaction with our partners, and being able to feel like we have control of our our bowel movements and our urge to use the bathroom. So that's where it's so important, because when I've seen in so many women, when pelvic floor health is compromised, a sense of fear and dread kind of comes over us. And we feel, you're laughing because you understand, because we feel like we can't enjoy the activities we want to enjoy, from, again, things like jumping on the trampoline with our kids to confidently enjoying, intimate interactions with our partner. And we kind of feel like as new moms, and that's after we have children, it's like, is this normal? Is this okay? And it's kind of this hush-hush conversation.
Right.
That's happening among women. And I think, so many wonderful people are out there right now that are sharing this. Like, no, you don't have to experience this after you have babies. This does not need to be your reality. And I love that the doors have just been flung open for this conversation.
Exactly. And I think so many women who have had babies go through this, whether it's a few weeks after, a few months after, or it's long lasting. I would love to keep talking with you because I know there's so much more we can talk about. I know. Tell everyone where they can go just to learn more about you, Pilates, what you're offering, because I know you have a pelvic floor restore program on your website.
Yes, I do. So you can find me at Live Life Pilates, so LIVELIFE Pilates.com. And I, in addition to my teacher trainings I do for Pilates professionals and movement professionals, I do offer, at the moment, I am currently offering my pelvic floor restore program for women to enjoy and learn from. My passion is really about educating women about their pelvis. So we're going to do the crux of the course is the program is movement and all the beautiful movement that you can do, but then we do add a little bit of conversation about, your pelvis and kind of education on that, because I think that's such a crucial part. If women really know how their pelvis works and their pelvic bones and muscles are structured, it just really empowers us as women to kind of know how our body functions. So Absolutely. I have the Pelvic Floor Restore program, and it's a beautiful program that includes some short lectures. It includes 5 Pilates classes and journals and questions to kind of get us thinking about our movement and how we can incorporate the movement into our daily life. So Perfect. I would love to offer your listeners as well, if they want to head over to the website, livelifepilates.com /5 steps. I have a freebie for you guys, for your audience, on 5 steps how to obtain a healthy pelvic floor. So how to obtain optimal pelvic floor health. And this is just a really simple, free guide for your listeners and for women to kind of tap into kind of this conversation about pelvic floor health and how movement can really be a catalyst for us to achieve that. So if your listeners want to pop over to the website and download that, I would love for them to do that. You can also find me on Instagram at Live Life Pilates, and that's where I share all sorts of goodness about the Pilates lifestyle and movement as well.
Great. Leah Stewart, thank you so much for joining me today. I look forward to having you back on this show soon. I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy. More coming up in a few.
Mom Talk Radio, a busy mom's best friend.
I'm Michelle Jerson, the Passport Mommy, and can you believe now is the time for high school students to sign up for next year's classes already? And there's so many choices. So today we're going to talk with Terry Redican. He is the Vice President of AP Program Delivery. He is responsible for managing the Advanced Placement Program's annual cycle, ensuring the delivery of opportunity to nearly 3 million students across 20,000 high schools worldwide. And we're going to talk with him about what makes AP courses so valuable. Terry, thanks so much for joining me today.
Oh, thanks for having me. It's great to be here. Yeah, it's that time of year again when students are starting to sign up for next year's classes. So advanced placement courses are on the mind of some folks. So happy to talk about the benefits of them to make sure parents and they can share with their students and moms, have a little bit of insight.
Exactly. So I know when I was in high school, I thought, it'd be great to take AP courses because then you get college credit. And some people feel like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I have to take these hard classes or these AP classes. So maybe you could debunk some of the myths and tell us what the benefits are of high school, college level AP courses.
Sure. As you mentioned, advanced placement courses or AP courses are college level courses that students can take in high school. The benefits of AP are real. Students, they can earn credit that saves them time and money in college. College admissions officers, we talk to them all the time. They tell us they look for students who challenge themselves in high school by taking AP. And the students who take AP, they get intrinsic value, or additional value beyond the opportunity to earn credit. They work on skills in each of the different courses, skills like critical thinking, reasoning, communication, skills that will help them in all their college courses and beyond.
Right. And how does a student determine which AP course to take? Because I know there are a few options.
Yeah, the good news is that we have an online tool to help students figure that out. Millions of students took the PSAT and MSQT last fall. Now, students can go look at their school report online at collegeboard.org today, and there's a section in there called AP Potential. And what that does is it shows each of the 38 AP courses and shows which of those courses a student might have a particularly high potential of success in based on the strengths that they demonstrated last fall in their PSAT. Another great resource is your high school counselor, teachers at school, your parents. Between the online resources that we have on your school report for the PSAT and those folks who care about you, those are two great options to help students figure out a course that might be right for them.
Right. Agreed. And what are some of the newer AP courses that are available?
Yeah, well, there's 38 AP courses in all, but there are a few new ones that have come out the last couple of years that are really exciting and really popular, not only with students but with teachers. First, there's AP Computer Science Principles. That introduces students to the foundational concepts of computer science. It includes coding. Lots of folks hear about coding these days, but it's not only about coding. Teachers work with students doing hands-on projects, and students really learn how computer science applies to just a wide range of career options in the process, whether it's engineering, app development, 3D animation, visual design, robotics, and really much, much more. I mean, what career today doesn't have a major dependency on technology and at its root computer science? So that's a really exciting offering. The other one is called AP Capstone, and that's a 2-course sequence. And you can take one, the other, or both. And they are skills-based courses. One's called AP Seminar, and one's called AP Research, and they're part of this capstone program. And by skills-based, it's really focused on skills as opposed to a specific content area. And that's what's so exciting about it, and that's why students and teachers are loving it. Teachers help students choose topics that are interesting to them. And in the process, they learn to develop college-level research, presentation skills, other skills on a topic of choice. And what we've found is that when the project work is focused on something a student could be passionate about, they become much more engaged. So between AP Capstone and AP Computer Science Principles, these new courses are really being well received by schools and students.
Yeah, I mean, I don't remember anything like that when I was in school, and I think it's amazing.
Did you take AP courses?
I did. Don't ask me which ones right now, but I tend to think they were maybe like math and I don't know, just basic courses, I think.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure. But I think that's great. So where can people go to get more information on the AP courses? I know you mentioned the website before.
Yeah, so the website I mentioned before was for anything having to do with College Board, collegeboard.org. But specifically, if you're looking to learn more information about these AP courses, the most direct way to get to them in our website is exploreap.org. And you can learn more about the courses I just mentioned, any of our other 38 courses at exploreap.org.
Great. Thank you so much. Terry Redican, Vice President of AP Program Delivery. Thanks so much for joining us today. And thank you so much for listening to the show. Don't forget, you can always head to my website, passportmommy.com, if you want to listen to this show again or any other shows that you may have missed in the past. And you can follow us on social on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram at Passport Mommy. Have a great rest of the day. I'm Michelle Jerson.